What up, and welcome to the Roundtable. I am your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. What's going on today, brother?
I'm good. How vintage is that jersey in the back? Is that thing signed back there?
What, you looking at the J Kid?
No, the on the other side of your head, the number 18 behind you.
Oh, the Wakai?
You got that signed or what? That's ready to go out
No,
to a listener?
no, not signed, but it's fresh off the presses, actually. Fresh off the presses.
Oh man.
18 graduation year, which is actually crazy to think about. Like, how insane is that, honestly? 4 years ago.
Yeah, it feels weird, but time has been standing still for 3 years now, something like that.
Something like that. Like, you have to really think about like the past 3 years. Like, what happened in that span? Like, trying to piece together the timeline. But yeah, I if you're watching on YouTube, got a new look in the old background. I got old Judge, had to shout out your boy Jason Kidd back there too,
Yeah,
Tyson,
my man.
your boy. And had to go a little narcissistic with the old Wakai Penn State jersey. So,
I think next time I'm gonna show up with like a Doc Rivers poster.
oh, you're just trying to wage war on me. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
so I gotta get something. Maybe Roy Williams celebrating his last national championship or something.
Oh God. Oh God. That'd be the death of me. But Tyson, like a Philly fan, like a true Philly fan, I am. Doc Rivers. That's in the past now. It's all about the Eagles going forward. And I know we're not talking about football today, but we'll get there. We're really excited for the season. But Tyson and I have a lot to get to on the NBA front today. Obviously, the two series going on, Eastern and Western conferences. Some discussion around the blowouts that have happened through the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals, along with throughout the playoffs that we've seen. So we'll talk that. But first, we want to talk about our weekend because last time we chatted, we had a big sports weekend. Tyson and I kind of teed you off with some golf picks, some discussion on the PGA Championship. We had the Preakness Stakes. Tyson, but how was your weekend overall, gambling or otherwise?
It was good. My little sister graduated college, so I got to go down to Spokane, watch her grab her diploma and scurry off the state. You know how those things are. They're so long, and you don't know 99.9% of the kids getting their names called.
Yeah.
Like, can we just hurry this thing? It's somebody that you've never heard of talking to a bunch of people you've never heard of. But it was cool. It was really cool to see her get her degree. So that was fun. Won a little money on the horse races by fading you.
Oh,
Why don't you just let everyone know? I mean, you were so confident.
I was Well, here's the thing. So I had my picks, my PGA Championship picks. We gave out. I had Will Zalatoris. He lost in a playoff, so he finished second. That was brutal. But that was Sunday, so it really capped off the weekend. If I had Epicenter, the horse that I gave out on this show, I thought he was a ringer. Ran great at the Derby, couldn't get it done. Finished second in the Preakness Stakes. Now that wasn't the worst part. I had a pick four going for you horse racing fans. That was my last leg of the pick four, basically a parlay for your non horse racing gamblers out there. And he finished second, so that was crushing. And I was talking about the Preakness winner like pretty much all week. Like, yeah, I'm probably gonna hold a ticket on him. I think he's a good horse. So he wins. I'm like, all right, well that's fine. No Epicenter, that sucks. He doesn't win. I didn't win this pick four. I look into the count. I'm like, did I really not put in a win
Not
bet on
early
this horse?
voting.
Like, are you kidding me? I didn't pick early voting, who I've been talking about all week. So to have Epicenter finish second, not pick early voting, who was my second choice for some reason, and then Zalatoris to finish second in the PGA Championship. It was a rough weekend for the boy.
Hey man, the only person that had a worse weekend than you was the man who just made $1 million taking third in the PGA Championship. I think.
Mito, what
Come
was
on.
that 18th, man? Holy smokes.
Well, I mean, you got to be so mad if you're him. You know, you hit it into a 2 foot ditch out there. There's like no water around, and you find the only water. That stinks. But Justin Thomas, I mean, that tee shot that he had in the playoff, he was nails when it came down to it. Um, I saw some people made a lot of money live betting that one. I don't have the balls to take the plus 25,000 guy at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, especially when he's 7 shots back. It's like, and he hadn't been playing good either. It was like, okay, JT's been kind of making a run here. And you look at the leaderboard, like nobody's really moving up. Will keeps coming back. Mito looked strong for a while. Obviously, Cameron Young made that run, but nobody could put together like a solid round. And JT He got hot and got himself into the playoff and won it. Now, I think if Zalatoris eagled that first hole in the playoff, he's the PGA champion, but he missed that putt. JT sinks that birdie. It's square. I'm just like, you're kidding me. I literally thought as soon as he missed that eagle, I'm like, I just lost this bet.
Rough weekend for you, man. But we thought we had one today in our same game parlay. We got another one that just misses there at the end. So I mean, I don't know if people want to just like fade you for the next couple of days, or what are we doing?
Well, we gave it out on our Instagram and our Twitter. So we put out our same game parlay for you guys just listen. So you definitely want to follow our social media pages that we always plug. We hit everything except we had a 4-legger. We hit everything except for the Dorian Finney-Smith steal. So couldn't get that for us, which was brutal because we've been so close to hitting pretty much every single same game parlay we put out. One was not close in that Celtics blowout game. But the first one that we put out during the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, PJ Tucker just inexplicably was missing shots. His number was 7.5. I mean, turning down wide open threes, that was like a heartbreaker. And this one, we're just hoping, just get lucky. And it couldn't get home for us. So it was brutal.
Single game picks, we're on fire, but it's the same game parlays that have been hurting.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you mentioned it. I mean, we are going to do more with our social media. So obviously, again, make sure to follow us there. We'll be putting out more picks and stuff like that. But we both thought the Mavs are going to stay alive in this one today. And they did. They showed up. They played well. I said before the game, I think they're going to hit like 33s today. And they were on pace for 33s through the half. I mean, they looked ready to play. And if you watch the game, you saw a noticeable difference between how the Mavericks wanted to attack. They got into the paint. They didn't just chuck up threes. They were purposeful shots, in the flow of the offense, and they just happened to go down today. But I think this is too little too late. We'll talk about the Warriors later. I think this series is over. Mavs may be able to get one. Maybe they can avoid a gentleman's sweep, but nobody's ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. I don't think this Mavs team is going to be the one to do it against this Warriors team. But if you're the Mavs, you take it one game at a time. We saw them climb their way back in that Sun series, not to dig at old wounds, Tyson, but they get hot from three. They're really hard to defend.
Yeah, and that's but at the same time, when they get hot from three, and Luka's not on the court, it's a lot of Spencer Dinwiddie step back threes and isolation basketball, and it's not going to be enough, high level when you get to this point in the playoffs. Like, it's even when they're making threes, they're really, really tough looks a lot of the time when Luka's not setting somebody up wide open. And that's just not going to be enough. Tonight they went in. I don't think they go in when they head back to San Francisco. And, man, like Golden State's championship mentality here and the letdown from Dallas after that huge Game 7 against Phoenix kind of just set the tone at the beginning of the series. And then we had the Andrew Wiggins game that I don't think anybody saw coming. But like Luka wasn't great in game 1, 20 points and horrible shooting percentage, but he scored 40 in game 2 and 3, and they got cleaned up there too. So it's on everybody else to make a ton of shots, and I don't think that's going to continue for 3 more games,
especially on the road, especially when the Warriors are going to be more focused. I mean, you saw Dallas came out with a sense of urgency and purpose, and the Warriors, when they weren't leading at the end of the first quarter, like, okay, the Warriors are going to pack this thing in. Now, they made it interesting at the end, but that game was as good as done. The Mavs really took their foot off the gas. It almost cost them. But overall,
don't do that. I was listening to Reggie say that the whole time, and it was like, this game isn't even in reach. It's 10 points with a minute left, Reg.
Yeah, but I mean, they cut it to 8, and I think everybody was like, oh my, because we saw what happened in game 2, though. I mean, again, Warriors were home. Mavs went ice cold, couldn't make a shot, but you're like, could the Warriors make a comeback of this? I mean, it was at least something where the starters had to come back in for the Mavericks.
Yeah, but that was Jason Kidd at his finest there. That was just a bit of a misuse there, I think, of the rotation. But as far as Golden State goes, like trying to come back, I think, we talked about it all day in a text back and forth that like the Mavericks are going to win this game because this is what they do. First of all, it's really hard to sweep teams in the NBA. Golden State, when they had Kevin Durant, didn't even sweep teams. They like to bring this thing back to the crib and go beat somebody by 40. And I almost got that sense in the fourth quarter. They panned to Steph Curry. It's a 12-point game with 3.5 minutes left or whatever. The bench is on fire, and he's slumped down. Not even like he's like, I guess I got to go back into the game. I want to get this thing back to San Francisco. Um, and you said the urgency for the Mavs, and I think that's true. But we've seen this 3 times this playoffs, twice by at least this playoffs by the Warriors. Just like, all right, we got this thing in hand. Let's go win it in front of the home fans.
Yeah, I mean, they did that against the Nuggets. We saw what happened against Memphis. They lost by like 50. And tonight, I mean, they were on pace to lose by 30. And, Mavericks took their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter. So we both coming into this game, we're like, I think the Mavs are going to get this one because this is just what the Warriors have shown us in these playoffs. And again, Mavs they didn't lose 4 games in a row all season long. They didn't want this to be the first one and to bow out in front of their home fans. So they stayed alive for another day. They play Thursday night. And we both think that the Warriors will wrap it up either in that game 6, or game 7. I think it's going to be really hard for the Mavs, as history shows, to win 3 more games in a row. But I mean, we're talking about it, Tyson. So it's kind of the elephant in the room when it comes to these NBA games and these NBA series. All the blowouts, and they suck. And we're basketball fans. We're saying this.
They suck. There's not even a reason to watch after the first 24 minutes. And some of these, the game 3 and game 4 in the Miami and Boston series, they're over after the first quarter. The games are even from the second quarter on, and teams are winning by 20. It's ridiculous. And then Golden State, just the first 3 games at least, come out in the second half and just turn the heat up and get Dallas on out of there. And it's like, everyone always says you don't have to turn on an NBA game until the final 5 minutes. You turn on the NBA game in the final 5 minutes here, and you're like, well, what the fuck? Like, you're looking around. How does this happen? And it is weird because the Warrior series kind of less so, but in Boston and Miami, it's like they're just trading blows, and the classic example is the 2016 finals with the Cavs and the Warriors. And then game 7 was super close. But at least there it was like, well, they got that guy. They have LeBron James. They're going to be throwing haymakers here, and then when it gets close, it's going to be close. In these other series, like, there hasn't been anything when I'm watching. Like, effort is the same, rebounding essentially is the same, except for Boston's been killing Miami on the boards the last 2 games. But it's like it's just shot making, and it's so weird because people give a lot of credit to these coaches, and some of the schemes change, but a lot is not changing in and out. As far as the looks teams are getting, sometimes a little bit more smothered than the game before, but somebody else is just as open. And it's like there's like 7 guys in the playoffs right now that can make consistent shots, and one of them is Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Well, I have a theory on this too, because everybody's throwing it out there. Like, how do you fix the blowouts in the NBA? I mean, are these guys just exhausted? I mean, do we need to cut down the games? Like, do we need to give them more time and the longer schedule? Well, here's what I think. You're not going to cut down the games because the NBA owners are making way too much money. The league's making way too much money on these TV deals. So you're going to be stuck with 82. And even if you cut down from like 82 to 72 or 62, I mean, people are still missing games as it is. They're still doing load management with a conscious effort. We got to rest for the playoffs. So you're telling me they cut down to 72 or 62. They're still not going to be missing games and load managing? Like, of course they are. They're not going to be playing all 62. That's the way this league is right now. There's a conscious effort to miss games. There's a scheduled time where you build in rest. And it infuriates, the older fans or the older players, because like we used to go out and play all 82. That was our job. We used to do it. Now it's accepted that we can do it. So I don't think cutting down the games is going to magically solve these blowouts. I think it has to do with the complete reliance and the obsession of the 3-point shot in the NBA. It is a feast and famine league right now. There's nowhere to put it. And you see it for basketball fans like you and me, and for others listening, following along in the NBA during the regular season, you see it all the time. Some team hits 18 threes, and it could be the Rockets playing the Bucks. The Bucks hit 11. The Rockets hit like 20. The Rockets win that night, or the Bucks don't play. They're coming off a back-to-back. They hit like 7 threes, and the Rockets are coming off a rest, and they just bury threes at night. Wow, what a blowout! How'd the Bucks get blown out? It's a conversation right now because it's the playoffs and it's on the national stage, and it's like if the regular season is going to be what it is, where it's like you don't really know what you're going to get with players sitting out and inconsistent play, this is the time where it's supposed to be like, all right, this is what we look forward to, and we're still getting these blowouts. I think it's the feast and famine. I don't think there's really anything we can do about it until there's a more conscious effort to not fall in love with the three ball across the entire league.
And I don't think that day is ever going to come. I think the data is out there. The studies are done. 3 is worth more than 2. Uh, that's like that's the obsession. If you're not at the free throw line or shooting 3-point shots, and people are saying that's ruining basketball, but I just think that's the game. That's how the game works. These are the rules. They're playing the game they're bending the rules in their favor, and there's nothing you can do about it, and people can get as upset as they want. But you can't love watching Trey Young drop 40 and then at the same time be like, man, these playoff games stink. It's like this is the NBA, and well, a lot of people don't pay attention until the playoffs too. And it's like there was a lot more blowouts this season than I think people are willing to admit right now, because it's like these are the high level teams in the NBA. Well, the high level teams in the NBA get beat by the Thunder, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get beat by the Thunder by 20 points because they're making shots, and shot making is not traveling in this playoffs, and it's just outside of really a couple of guys, it's like who's going to show up tonight? You don't know, and it's got to drive coaches crazy. But you're shooting from 30 feet away. You're in a new gym. Sometimes it doesn't go in.
Yeah, and especially with the travel. Now they're playing every other. Like beforehand, it was, you're taking a couple days off in these playoff series. You get to land in your hotel, then you get to stay there. Now you're doing every others, which I like. I think it's great for the viewing audience. Like it's terrible when you're like, why is there no team playing today? Like this it should be happening this way as a TV schedule and how the league is running their playoff schedule. But I mean, to your point, you're right. I mean, when you're shooting from that far away repeatedly, and it's a high intensity environment, you're having to play defense, you're running around constantly. Sometimes that shot's not falling. And when there's not a conscious effort to establish a low paint game like they used to, like work from inside out, now it's all perimeter. You're going to have these games. And when one team's hitting and when one team's not, and you would know, well, next game we're going to be hitting and the other team probably won't be. I think it gets in that mentality, and we've seen it with the Boston Celtics all playoffs. Oh, we lost this game. All right, backs against the wall. Let's go. We're all focused now. We're in. We're ready to do it. They win. They're 5-0 off of losses. And then the next game they have a stinker because like, all right, let's relax a little bit. Oh, we're back in it. And then they shoot poorly. That's just the way I think we're going to see more of this too. And I think it's going to be hard for a lot of people to wrap their mind around like, why is this happening? But that it's the analytical part of the game now where, like you said, 3 is more than 2. And even if you shoot 33% from the 3 and 50% from 2, the person who's going to shoot 33% from 3 at a high volume is going to eventually win more games than the other team. So this is a complicated argument. I think it's disingenuous to just be like, well, just cut games, help the players out. They're tired. It's like, I don't think that's the problem. I think the overall reliance of the 3-point shot is making this what it is.
And we have the classic coming back right now. It's just better defense in college basketball. That's
God,
because they can't
such
fucking shoot. They've been running the same set since the 1980s. They run their offense through the post, look for mid range, look for cutters, and you got one guy on a college team that might be able to shoot 35% from deep. You get cut in the NBA these days if you can't shoot 35% from deep and you're trying to play a wing position or something. I mean, it's so different, and it's getting frustrating because you're being able to weed out the guys that don't watch in the regular season, and then they pop up. Well, this game is ruined. This isn't the way basketball is supposed to be played. This is the definition of the rule book. This is what it says. You made 3-point shots legal. They didn't use them for 20 years. And then somebody walked in one day. It wasn't Daryl Morey, but we can give him most of the credit here. And it was like, wait a minute. All I have to do is shoot 40 of these a night. I can only make 15, and we're going to win the game. it's almost silly how obvious this was, like, and we didn't really see it coming, and to this extent, when Steph started lighting the world up in the early or mid 2010s there, and it was like, I don't know if this is going to stay. Like, not everybody can do this. Well, yeah, they can't do it like him, but they can do it better than anybody who played before, like 2005 ever did it, with the exception of a couple people.
Yeah, and speaking of Steph and the Warriors, I mean, we see that what they do too is so fluid, like the back cuts, the off ball screens, where I think that helps them avoid falling in love with the 3-point jumper. Now they are prone to that, but that was the question with the old heads, with Barkley infamous on Inside the NBA and on TNT.
Jump shooting
I
teams
don't
can't
I
win
don't think the
championship.
Warriors, yeah, jump shooting teams can't win an NBA championship, because that was the case, because that was finesse. You need an inside presence, and you can't live and die by jump shots in the old NBA. But now, when you can't be physical and you can't hand check and you're able to get off jump shots, hell, you can't even land under somebody anymore. Back in the day, you're doing that all the time. You're hitting them when they're in the air to some extent. Nowadays, it's all for the shooter. It's a clean landing. Everything is just made to make the life of a jump shooter much easier. That's why the transition has been so abrupt. Now, I think some teams have gone over the top of it. Like we saw with the Houston Rockets. It was like, okay, we just need to outshoot the Warriors, which is hard to do, especially when the Warriors not only shoot better than you, but they also get to the paint better than you, and they do attack backdoor. And I think that's what separates the Warriors really than I think a lot of the teams in the league right now. I know they had a couple down years due to injuries and just due to some moving parts, but this Warriors team right now, uh, Tyson, they're obviously the title favorites. They played like they should be at times. There's some question marks about them throughout the playoffs at times as well. This is the best basketball I think they've played all season. They're peaking at the right time, and as veterans who have been there before, with the veteran coaching staff, with the head coach who knows what he's doing in these spots. Obviously, Curry, your leader, Draymond, your leader. It feels like they know how to win right now, while other teams are still trying to figure it out. Like we see Boston, we see Miami. I know Miami was there in the finals in the bubble. It's a different world now with the travel. They're trying to figure it out in this series. Warriors are like, okay, we know what to do. We know how to put away teams. We know how to get to the championship round. In your mind, should they be the title favorites right now?
No, I've been rocking with Boston since like before when we did our NBA championship prediction show before the playoffs. I always thought they were going to make it there. I still think they're the best team in the league. Um, just the defense, the length, they're just too versatile right now. And I know that's been the Warriors' calling card, but the Celtics are going to beat the shit out of you. And then they're going to kill you on the rebounding. They're going to kill you on the glass. That's what they're doing to Miami. They're doing it to the biggest bullies in the league right now, the biggest bullies left, right? The,
Supposedly.
yeah, that's what they say. And I'll read about 64 to 44 last game, something crazy like that. 44-34 the game before that. Just killing you on the glass, and they're still kind of getting healthy. I just think that the way they're able to pack the paint can negate a lot of what Golden State's going to want to do as far as running their offense, and it's not going to turn them stagnant, but it turns them more into a high screen and roll team. We're going to see a lot of Jordan Poole creation if that is the matchup. But Golden State's on fire, but I also think this is like the perfect tune-up for them too right now. Perfect opportunity for them to look really good playing this Dallas team. I still like Dallas is like, to me, they're like the Clippers last year, where it was like these guys are in the Western Conference Finals and that's cool, but they have no shot at winning an NBA championship. And that just is how this feels. And you're not playing Phoenix anymore. You're not playing Utah. This is a solidified NBA champion, and they're coming for the jugular on a very young team. And I know the teams in the East haven't accomplished anything, and this is the You Got to Show Me podcast. But I believe in Boston, and I think all those guys over there in Boston are winners. I think they're certified winners, and they just are waiting on the ring.
Well, to your point, if you like the Boston Celtics, like Tyson, they are plus 250 right now to win the NBA Finals. So obviously that's assuming they get by Miami. They're minus 155 favorite right now in the Eastern Conference. So that's interesting. I mean, obviously they don't have home court advantage. Boston doesn't. Miami still holds that, being the number one seed in the East, but Miami Heat to win the championship plus 460s. Golden State, the favorite right now at minus 150. For me, I think the Warriors are the rightful title favorite. Minus 150. I actually, it feels a little long, being that juiced to not give you any plus money. But I think just the way they've played, they're going to have rest. They've been there before. It sets up perfectly for that number. I think if you like the Warriors, I would take it now. I think it's only going to get better because I think if the Heat get past the Celtics, especially with the way they've looked, I think Boston's going to be, or I'm sorry, I think the Warriors are going to be even bigger favorites. If the Celtics get there, I'm curious to know what that series line is going to open at, but I don't think you're going to get anything better than Warriors minus 150. I could be wrong, but I think them sitting at minus 150 right now, that may be the shortest number you get. But I think they should be the title favorites. I mean, for a lot of what I just said, they're veterans. They've been there before. They're going to go up against the Celtics team who may have that feeling like the Thunder when they had to face the Miami Heat with LeBron and Wade and Bosh. Like, this is like, we look at the Celtics like, okay, really good team. Just like we looked at the Thunder, really good team. They have great players, Westbrook, Durant, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum. Could it be a little bit too early? Could the moment be a little too bright for the Celtics when they face the Warriors who have been there, done that? That's a possibility. I want to see how the Celtics close this series. Obviously, we have plenty of time before we make our official NBA Finals picks. We believe the Warriors will be there. It's almost a 99.9% certainty they will be. They're resting. There's a chance Gary Payton the second comes back. That's another weapon to throw at some of the perimeter guys. The Warriors are peaking right now. Andrew Wiggins has taken his game to another level. Kayvon Looney, I mean, somebody who's been blind there or, just hasn't lived up to expectations since he's come into the league. He's improved his game in this series alone. That's a huge piece against the Celtics who, like you said, attack you on the glass, are elite
But he's
rebounders.
rebounding against Maxi Kleba and Davis Bertans and Dwight Powell.
But nobody else against this Warriors team has rebounded at a high efficiency level like Kayvon Looney has.
Well,
Gobert did, but he struggled to play. I mean, Kayvon Looney's punishing this Mavericks team and has punished this Mavericks team through 3 games that nobody else in the NBA has done so far in these playoffs.
I'm taking Time Lord, baby.
Can he be healthy though? Because that's the thing with Robert Williams. He's walked off the court to get looked at 3 times already out of 4 games in the Celtics series. So
I'm taking
I
Horford.
like him. Al
I
Horford, the robber of the Sixers, stole all our money.
And so you got Golden State as a favorite, but you're still not sold who's making out of the East, huh?
Well, all right. So let's talk about that. I think it's the Celtics. I mean, we picked the Celtics in 7. We talked about it before we got on here. I mean, the Heat have won, I think, 3 or 4 quarters in this entire series. Like, if you look at it, Boston's dominated this series. It's just tied 2-2 for some big quarters that the Miami Heat have had. I think the Celtics are a better team. I think they're a deeper team. They can score in more ways. And when they lock down defense, all we hear, man, the Heat defense is great. The Celtics defense is better. And when they force Jimmy Butler into tough contested shots and nobody else on the Heat team is getting anything and getting good looks, the Celtics have clearly been the superior team. I do believe they're going to come out of the East eventually.
I think, the biggest thing for Miami, and we talked about it a little bit in the pre-show, is like Kyle Lowry has to be better. I know he's just coming back and kind of reacclimating himself, but you're taking away minutes from players who were playing well, right? To come out here, game 3, he had like 11 points and 6 assists, and he looked okay. Shot the ball really bad, but he was enough for them to get by. But game 4, he's 1 for 6 with 3 points, 2 assists. He's a $100 million man. You need more. Bam Adebayo, you need more. You had 31 in one of these games this series. You should be able to do that, at least to some extent. You can't be having 8 points and disappearing. I think that Tyler Hero injury, to me, is what puts Boston over the edge here because when Hero's coming off the bench getting 15 to 20, Miami's a lot more dangerous team because you're not relying all the way on Max Strus. You're not relying all the way on some of these role players to just knock down shots. PJ Tucker doesn't have to get 11, right? And because Boston's going to kill you. Like their bench is just going to light you up if you're not scoring with your bench. And Miami doesn't really have the necessary. Like Victor Oladipo is really, really good in Game 4, but they need Indiana Victor Oladipo if they want to win the series. They need a second shot creator to be able to run with that bench unit outside of Jimmy Butler because I know the strength and conditioning program is crazy in Miami, but nobody's playing 48 minutes anymore.
Yeah, and when you look at Victor Oladipo, I mean, you hear it when on the broadcast. I mean, when they're talking about him, oh man, he's getting back. He's close to getting back to what he was, and we've heard this for 2 years, right? And at some point, a player is what he is now, and it's a terrible injury, obviously tearing his quad, or tearing the ligament in his quad or a tendon in his quad, something crazy. Like I think they said they really only see that in football injuries, so it was something really tough for a basketball player to have to deal with. But you can see he's not the Indiana Oladipo because he doesn't have the burst and he doesn't have the explosion. Now he can do it in spurts, and he did it last game in Game 4. He got 23 points, shot the ball well. But right now, Victor Oladipo isn't that player where you're like, okay, he can consistently
Can you do that 3 more
do
times?
this.
That's the
Exactly.
thing.
Especially when, like you said, Bam Adebayo isn't playing well. Kyle Lowry's a shell of himself with his quad injury. Now Tyler Hero's hurt, and Jimmy Butler's got a knee injury. The Heat are just a walking infirmary. And against a Celtics team who is really, really physical, who wants to beat you up, it's only the longer the series goes, they're going to get more and more injured. The Heat.
And Boston's walking into every building with the best shot maker on the court. I think maybe left in the playoffs, and that's no disrespect to a guy like Steph Curry. Steph is awesome. That's just how good I think Jason Tatum is at creating his own offense. Miami is throwing everything at this guy, and he's still walking out of the arena with 27 points, making the right play over and over again. I've been really impressed with Tatum. And I just like Jaylen Brown's been really good in spots. Marcus Smart's been really good in spots. They're just showing up when they have to, kind of like you alluded to, when their backs against the wall. But it's going to take a little bit of urgency. Like these first quarters have been decided in the Eastern Conference games, and it's ridiculous. It's like you forgot to get off the bus. This is the NBA playoffs, and I know it's happened a couple times. We're talking about these blowouts, but at a certain point, like you can't be getting blown out in the first quarter. Like that's a danger zone for anybody. The team, I think Boston won 34-11 in the first quarter in Game 4, and Miami was up like 29-13 or something at the first quarter of Game 3.
Yeah.
It's like the game's over. Like the game is over. You're not playing the Rockets that might have shot 7 threes in the first quarter. You're playing another really, really high level NBA team. It's crazy to me that this keeps happening. And I know we had our discussion on it. I can't get over it, man.
Especially in this series when it's two well-established organizations.
Yep.
With well coached. We've seen that with Ime Udoka, rookie head coach, but we've seen him be a good coach. And Spoelstra, who's an established, really elite head coach in this league, for their teams to just be so hot and cold, it's really eye-opening. Now, Tyson, let's go a step further because we do like to gamble on this show. Now, I've been diving in here. This is courtesy of FanDuel Sportsbook. So Boston right now, I alluded to it earlier. They're minus 155 if you like them to win the Eastern Conference. Heat are plus 130 if you like them to win the Eastern Conference Finals. So if you like them to win the series, those are your numbers there. Now, here's what I dug into a little bit here, Tyson. Get interesting. Series correct score numbers. Boston to win the series 4-2 is plus 160. So they'd have to win the next 2 games, one in Miami and then close it out back home. Boston Celtics to win in 7, 4-3. That's plus 270. If you like the Heat to win the next 2 games, plus 460. And if you like the Heat to win in 7, plus 240. Now, I bring this up because this is interesting here. The Miami Heat have only lost one time on their home floor this playoffs, and that was in this series against Boston in Game 2, obviously. Boston has not been very good on their home floor this playoffs. Obviously, they swept the Nets. Could have lost game one. Probably should have lost game one. In complete honesty, they had that buzzer beater. They lost twice to the Bucks on their home floor, and then just lost game 3 to the Heat. This series, I don't know if we can definitively say, hey, Boston at home, closing that out is a lock. If they don't win this game in Miami, how interesting do you think this series can be for Boston?
If they go down 3-2, I think it could get pretty tricky. I mean, I still like this team, but I think part of that is that I think they win tomorrow. I picked him in 6 before the series, and I'm still sticking with that one. That is interesting. That's the shortest of the odds there that the public thinks Boston's going to win the next 2 games. But I mean, you picked him in 7. I picked him in 6, and I think you're right to say either one. I don't think changing your mind is that crazy here. The games we haven't learned anything from these games. That's the frustrating part. Is Jimmy Butler at 41. Well, I knew he could score 41. It's like everybody on Boston made shots. We saw them do that against Milwaukee. Like everybody in Miami's making shots. We saw them do that 82 times throughout the NBA season. It's like there's nothing here that's like surprised me so far, and that's why I'm still pretty confident in my prediction. And I think that anytime Jason Tatum steps on the court, he's a threat to go for 50. And I don't feel the same way about Jimmy Butler. I think a lot of things have to go right for Jimmy as far as getting going early, getting into the paint. Jimmy's not going to shoot 6 threes, right? He's got to be making shots from the mid-range. He's playing old school basketball. He's trying to bang into people, get to the line, shoot 20 free throws like he can do sometimes. But Boston's really disciplined, and they've been much more disciplined since that game 1 outburst. And Jimmy's a little banged up, and I think that kind of plays directly into Boston's hands.
You like Boston in 6. I like Boston in 7 pre-series. Now, we both like Boston to win the series. You can take both of these bets. Boston will win 4-2 plus 160, or Boston to win, and Boston to win in 7 4-3 at plus 270 and make money.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you like Boston, you should put a bet on both of these. I'm going to do it after the show. You're going to guarantee yourself you're going to make money if Boston wins this series, no matter what. Now, that's the hope. Now, there's going to be an opportunity to hedge against the Heat here. If you would just want to take, Heat to win the series, that's a hedge too.
But we don't do that here.
We don't do that here. We're not lawnscapers.
No, we say it over and over again, man. We're looking for the value against everybody else. We're just trying to find the edge, and it might be $5, but you know what? That's good enough for us.
That's the edge, man. Boston. So you can take both those. You guarantee yourself money. You guarantee yourself some money. So that's a little tidbit from the round table here, a little gambling action here. I'm as much as we talked about the blowouts, and it's been a pretty underwhelming NBA playoffs. If it's Warriors Celtics, that is a banger matchup.
It's huge. It's huge. I still don't think people know how good Boston is, and I think Golden State could be the team to kind of put the eyes on him here. I think in a lot of people's mind, this is still 19-year-old Jason Tatum losing to LeBron James. And those guys, this is a way different team. This is a team that, is a little bit more veteran-laden. And I think it'd be important, but I also, like, if Miami goes, the bubble finals was big because it was, again, LeBron James. But the narrative is going to be way different this time, and I think that'll be important too. And I mean, not for nothing, the all NBA teams came out, and the entire first team was under 27. So it might be time to get some of these fresh faces into these new households. First time since 1954, I think that ever happened.
Really? Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of getting that way just because like the youth and the age of these players that are coming into the league, like they're coming in at 18, 19. I mean, Andrew Wiggins has been in the league for 8 years, and he's like 27,
right?
Like 26, 27. I'm like, oh my God, this guy feels like he's been around forever. He's 27 years old. It's like he's gonna have another max deal in him.
He better not get one. He can get one from the same team that gives one to Aiden.
The Kings.
Yeah.
That's such a Kings move. They might do it. All right. Well, this is gonna be a quick one, guys. I mean, not a lot going on besides this in the NBA. I mean, baseball's chugging along, but nothing really crazy happening. It's still like a quarter of the way through the season, so we still got a ton of games left. NFL, not much really. I mean, we're getting ready for NFL training camp.
Getting
Believe
close
me.
here. We're going to be – I got Brad and some Dynasty Fantasy Football here, so
Yeah.
we'll be diving more into the kind of the minutia of the NFL as how training camp works, who's, for the fringe guys that could make a difference. We'll have all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. We'll have you guys covered here. Let's close how we always do with a little money-making time, though, Tyson. One game tomorrow in the NBA, obviously. Boston's going back down to Miami. Boston's a 1.5-point favorite on the road. They are minus 124 on the money line. Heat plus 106 on the money line. Over under set at 203.5. Do you have a bet on this game?
I'm taking Boston minus 1.5.
Ooh, okay.
I think, I can't say everything I just said and come on here and pick Miami. All right. I mean, I like that line, actually. I think 1.5 is just right about where I want it. I think at 3, somewhere around there, I start getting a little nervous. But I like Boston to cover. And I also think that if you want to do like a player combo there, I think Jason Tatum to score 30 plus and Boston to win at plus 260 is something I would be entertaining as well.
For me, I think I'm agreeing with you there. I'm going to take Boston minus 1.5. Just the uncertainty of the Heat. I think Boston's ready to kind of start putting this game in the series away. I also like the over 203.5.
That's
Now
low. It feels low.
It's really low, and they've gone over. Was it 3 out of the 4 games, I believe, in this?
Game 1.
They did the first 2 in Miami.
Game 2.
They
Game
didn't in
3,
game 4.
they went over. And game 4 was the only one to be under so far.
Yeah, so 3 out of the 4, and they went low.
Miami scored 82 points.
And they should play a lot better at home, the role players at least. I mean, we don't know about Hero, so that's going to be interesting, but Strus should play better. Duncan Robinson's getting more minutes. He should play better. It all, it's all dependent on Oladipo. But
he
Celtics
makes $70 million, dude.
It's crazy.
Or $90 million. He makes like $90 million, dude. And people
absolutely
are wondering why there's blowouts. It's because guys like Duncan Robinson exist. He's going to come in and shoot 55% from 3.
But I'm with you. Celtics minus 1.5. I like the over 203.5. A little puck action here. Colorado Avalanche, a chance to close it out at home against the St. Louis Blues. Minus 240 on the money line. Ugh, I don't want to lay that. I'm going to take a shot on Avs minus 1.5 at plus 100. It seems like they figured out the Blues a bit. I like them at home to close this thing out. Could be an empty netter that they get in at the last second, and we'll cover that. I am a little weary that the Avalanche are a choke artist, but this feels like a different team. I'm going to take a shot on Avs minus 1.5 tomorrow.
I love it. You've been killing the hockey bets.
Trying to, man. Trying to. Have you started betting baseball yet, by the way?
Yeah, man. Baseball is my favorite sport to bet. I think people always say baseball is the hardest sport to bet, but I don't agree with that. I think baseball is the easiest one to find the value against the public. I mean, we have the numbers, right? We know it's as advanced analytics as you can get. And you can say college football is the most popular argument that I hear when I say that, and I get some pushback. But you can have fun with your minus 570 Alabama money line, right? The Mets are going to win 100 games this year. Every time that I can get them at plus money, it's better. If I hit 60% of those, I'm making more money than you betting Alabama money line every time. And so baseball is my favorite one to bet, and I think people get a little too ahead of themselves because they start doing total bases and all this stuff. Just pay attention to ERAs. Look at the pitchers, who's pitching. Look at the trends, how the team's been hitting, and you have. It's like people pay a lot of money for subscriptions to services for these numbers and other sports, and they just give them to us for free here. All you got to do is read them.
Yeah, and to that point too. I mean, if you like, I know a big time popular thing now in baseball is the first 5 bets because you're basically going whose starting pitcher is going to beat the other starting pitcher. Yep. So it's more of a head to head. You don't have to rely on the bullpen guys. Somebody's arms worn out. It's like, okay, it's DeGrom's on it. Let's say Walker Buehler, he's a great pitcher for the Dodgers, and he's going up against the Nationals who suck.
Right.
Like I'm going to take Walker Buehler in that matchup. Okay, if you lay a half, you're laying minus 170 for them to win by a run in the first 5 innings over. Yeah, I'm going to pay minus 270 on the money line, and
Yeah.
something wonky could happen.
No,
So that if you're not big into baseball, I mean, again, reach out to us on social media. Like we'll answer. We'll answer any questions you guys have. I know it's going to get a little dry with basketball being over and before football. So if you guys are looking for some action, you've never really bet baseball before, hit up Tyson and I on our social media pages. You got any other quick advice you want to give out during money making time, Tyson?
I mean, we don't got a UFC card until June 4th, but
that's brutal.
I know, man, because we've been on a heater with those. With
Well, you have. I follow you. Yeah, I tail you. You're the UFC guy here. Whatever you bet, I'm like, yep, get me on that.
We're hitting it like 80% over here. So if you want to wait till June 4th to tune back in, that's fine. But you're gonna get some money out there in the meantime, and then we'll give it all back on June 4th.
Absolutely, we'll get it back, and we're gonna post more of our content, obviously, on our social media pages. We appreciate you listening as always. Like, subscribe, share the podcast. We love the support. We're going to have another same game parlay for Celtics Heat. We're going to be putting out on our Instagram @ the roundtable pod _ We're going to be posting more content on TikTok @ the roundtable pod _ and then obviously Twitter. We're on there as well @ TRT _ pod. So make sure to give us a follow. If you have questions about gambling, just questions in general, if you want to ask us a question, we'll answer it on the podcast as well. If it's a general sports question, don't be shy. We do not bite.
Speak for yourself, brother.
We appreciate you guys listening as always. And until next time, peace.